we brought in two right set of people. We've got Parvathi, who is a PR professional, just freshly graduated, Gen Z, rightly so, and a very experienced HR recruiter, George Mathew, joining us on Zoom for this debate. Thank you so much, Parvathi. Thank you so much, George, for joining in.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Neil, you mentioned Parvati's generation. Thank God you didn't call me a baby boomer. But yes,
No, see, I had to only give age references for Parvati. I mean, there's no relationship for age for you and I, George. So we are absolutely, immaterial as far as age is concerned. Now, Parvati, in your
Yes.
defense, everyone says
Mhm.
that, oh, Gen Z, this is a TikTok generation. Tell me, how many hours do you spend on TikTok every day?
To be very honest, very less. But again, I'm a Reels person, not a TikTok person. So I spend most of my time on Instagram, on Reels. But yeah, that's true. TikTok, Instagram, social media, I would say,
Social
more than
media.
TikTok generation. Yeah.
Fair. So now, does that social media and whatever you see and consume on social media also raise expectations on a lifestyle level when you are looking for a job? Because you see, so many content creators are like chilling, wearing casual clothes, not really working, making a lot of money, and you think that, hey, you know what? What interview are you trying to take of mine? I can make more money sitting on Instagram.
True, I completely agree with you because anyone who's going into a job interview, they're thinking, if this doesn't work out, I have a better way to make money. A way that's like you mentioned, it's relaxing, it's flexible. You can stay at home. You just have to go for like a couple of hours of shoot and then you're back home chilling again. Because that's expectation that's been raised by the content creators, the influencers out there. So I think, including me, if God forbid I lose my job, I think, okay, I have plan B. Be an influencer, just start creating content. What am I going to lose?
There you go, George. If you got someone sitting across the table when you're trying to interview them for a very serious job and they say, listen, if you don't give me a job, it's okay. I'm going to start making YouTube videos and make thrice the money in the first 3 months.
absolutely. And very well said by one of the biggest social media gurus of today's age, Kim Kardashian. No one wants to work anymore. So, I mean,
Well,
this
She
generation
definitely
obviously is
doesn't.
following. Yeah. So this generation is obviously following that dikkat. So I understand where Parvati is coming from, that yes, there's always another option, but how many content creators do we need? How many and how long are you going to be on social media? So that is, so there's an age limit. Up to what age can you create content? Up to, unless you keep coming up with new content every day. So there is a time when all of us have to work. So that time will come. And one of my belief, Parvati, I mean, honestly, I work with a lot of colleges. I hire from these colleges. I'm totally pro Gen Z. The problem that I see is many of these, I mean, candidates don't prepare for interviews. So they don't even know what the company does when they come for an interview. Okay, so I mean, how do we take an interview if you don't know what you're interviewing for? That is, so any comments on that, Parvati?
I,
See,
I'll,
I
I'll,
think
I'll,
again, the
I'll come here in
research is,
between.
yeah,
I'm sorry, Parvati. I'll
yeah,
quickly,
no problem.
I'll quickly come
Yeah,
here in
yeah, no
between.
problem.
When George said that, people don't come prepared. What is the expectation first, so that we are on the same page? Because you say prepared, Parvati says, listen, I'm prepared because you're asking me to give my experience, my expertise, whatever I've learned from college. I'm prepared for that. So, what is the preparation that you expect, George?
So, I mean, I'm not a stickler for coming in a suit or anything for an interview. I'm perfectly fine because tomorrow you're not going to work in that suit. And I understand that many of these Gen Z started off their careers, unfortunately, sitting at home and working
Pandemic.
because of the pandemic. So the first
Pandemic,
two
yeah.
years went off in the pandemic, sitting at home working. So I'm not at all a stickler for that. But at least read up about the company that you're interviewing for. And most of the people that you might be interviewing with are there on LinkedIn or some other site like that. You can do a bit of research so that when you are meeting them, you can create that connect. You can say, hey, I know what your company does. And I'll give you a classic example. Day before yesterday, I was at one of the engineering colleges. Out of the 30 students that I met, one stuck in my head, and I said, you are doing my digital marketing. Because you know how she came? She came with a notepad. She sat in front of me. She like, George, your Instagram is pathetic. I mean, she meant the company's Instagram, not mine. Your LinkedIn, you're just talking about what you do. You don't give any content out there that is useful for others. She literally shredded me in the first 5 minutes, and then the rest of the interview was like, okay, please tell me how I can fix it. So that is preparation, Neil. That is how you can come. And that, I mean, she still used the same tools that Parvati is talking about,
True.
Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook. She still used to do that to do the research, and still she came up with an amazing pitch to sit in front of me. I know she did the research. I know she knows about my company. Although she literally dissed me in that one 5 minute monologue, I was still impressed.
Parvati, now your take on this.
Yeah, so I think again, how many people go unprepared, or how many people go very, like not formally dressed or casual, smart casually dressed. That again, I think depends on generation by generation. I feel I started working when I was 20 years old, and that time there was a need for a job, which was a little more before the TikTok and the Reels era. So again, Gen Zs, some of them might be following this. I think the recent generation, they're more casual about things, like how you'd mentioned that they really don't want what the company expects from them. Rather, they'd say, I am this person, this is what I'm trained for, take me or leave. That's the attitude which is coming in a very recent time, and that I think has to do a lot with the technological developments, where they come from, what they're expected of. Even the reason about the pandemic, how they were all expected, or they were believed that you can work from home. So the flexibility in work, the work from home culture, these are the demands that Gen Z puts
But
ahead, saying that this is what we want. But I think before, maybe 5 years before, there was no option of work from home. You were forced to come into work every day, irrespective of what it is. So I think a lot, because of the pandemic, because of the development of digital media, a lot has changed.
I love the way she said that you were forced to come to work every day. No, Parvati, no one was forced to come to work every day. That was a mandate. That is how work happened. 5 days or 6 days a week, you had to go to work. No one was forcing you. I mean, you don't want to go to work, don't go to work. Simple. You don't get paid
Don't
for
go.
it. But this is very interesting. The way we are trying to bridge the gap between Gen Z and the rest of the world, that expectations, like you mentioned, Parvati, that things changed because of COVID and all of that. But where is the fact check happening? Because the Gen Z still have parents who've been through that entire rigmarole of going to work, dressing up for work, having a proper haircut, the beard is properly trimmed, your clothes talk about you. Because as they say, and I'm sure that George will agree, that when people, like my dad told me this when I went for my first interview, and that was for an advertising agency, mind you, right? So and I was like, I'll wear like a casual t-shirt and a pair of jeans, because
Casuals,
that's how
yeah.
it's going to be. My dad is like, no, before you walk in and open your mouth about whatever you've learned and known and whatever your experience is, they will see what you're wearing. That impression, the first impression that you create when you walk through the door, is what will matter when they start talking to you. Once you are in the job, uske baad mein, depending on how your boss allows you to wear casual outfits, you can or you may. But abhi ke liye, dress formally and go. George, is that the fact of matter true when you are interviewing people, when you see someone, if not like properly suited up with like a tie and all, but at least wearing a nice jacket, clothes properly ironed, hair done properly, even nails trimmed?
I think absolutely right. I mean, the old adage that first impressions matter still matters. I mean, there was a very nice interview long back. I mean, over a century back, Thomas Edison, when he was hiring people for his lab, he never talked to them first. He offered them soup.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. If they seasoned the soup before even tasting it, they were rejected immediately because he didn't want people who come with preconceptions.
Wow.
So even before talking to the person, he judged the person. And the same thing happens about first impressions. When the person walks into the room, when the way they shake hands, the way they present themselves, first impressions does matter. So that's, I mean, that still stays.
Mhm. Now, Parvati, if you were to go in for an interview yourself, would you really take time out to think which jacket should I be wearing, or would you be like, listen, I look good in whatever I wear. I'm going there for work, and listen, my work will matter. It doesn't matter how I, if my hair's done well or not done well, or if I'm like wearing the right kind of shoes with the right kind of dress.
I think it still does play an important role, because again, you see a lot of things on TikTok and Instagram and everything. And there also there's a whole culture of how you dress up for a business or a formal event. So that's still there. But I think the standards have changed. Maybe not a suit, but maybe a semi-casual shirt or something different, maybe joggers or sneakers. But that will again be well dressed, but not to the point where you wear a blazer, you kind of suffocate yourself in this heat. Because very recently I'd gone for an interview, not interview, a meeting. And I remember meeting a person and he was like, why are you wearing a suit? It's summer, it's peak summer. And I was like, okay, I thought I had to be formal. And then he's like, no, this is cool. This is how it is right now. And this person, I mind you, it was a millennial or a baby boomer. So I think a lot of people have started rebranding themselves, thinking that this is the new norm. This is how it is in a creative industry, or this is how you have to be cool in the professional self. So I think that way that has also evolved a lot.
Interesting. You mentioned that it's in the creative industry. Industry also plays an important role when you are hiring for a bank. George, you will not accept someone who's walking in flip flops or sneakers, for that matter. And seeking a very very serious role in a bank.
Absolutely. So when Parvati was talking about, sneakers and all that, I remembered when I had to go to Coca-Cola for the interview. I mean, I worked there for 6 years, so obviously I got the job. When I had to go, I actually went specially out and picked up a tie. That was the exact Coca-Cola red to wear with my suit. That is how much
Brilliant.
of preparation we used to put into interviews. Yeah, absolutely. So yes, it does matter. The kind of role that you're going for does matter how you dress for the job. Obviously, when it is an online interview, it does not matter as much. But yes, your surroundings matter, even in an online interview, how you present yourself. So yes, it does matter. I mean, I still feel it does matter.
Now, while all of these, how you dress up, what is your preparation is one thing. The biggest concern, and this is like, that this is something that has been a top of that research that's come through, is astronomical expectations of salaries. That Gen Z thinks that, listen, I'm out of the university, I need half a million dirhams as my starting salary, and at least 3 million dirhams in my annual bonuses. George, is that true?
See, that is absolutely true. And one alternate career that Parvati did not mention, which is also spoiling this, is the startup career, which a lot of Gen Z are trying to do. They don't want to work in a corporate environment. They're just out of college. They decide on starting a startup. Investors invest crazy money. I
True.
remember an investor, he used to say that if I see somebody who comes to me asking for investment and he's wearing a Louis Vuitton belt and a very expensive shoes and a very I won't invest in them because they are obviously splurging all the money that the investor is giving them on how they so that is another career option. So honestly, their expectations are very high, even after joining the job. I mean, this whole new TikTok trend of lazy jobs and whatnot. I mean, quitting and all that. Obviously, their expectations are very high. When the expectations are not met pretty quickly, they get disillusioned very fast. That is also because of the social media culture, I believe, because things happen very fast. I mean, our attention span from a 3 hour movie has gone to a 30-second short form
True.
video. Okay, so obviously,
Very much.
people are expecting 3 months. I have worked, I've done exceptionally well. So my appraisal has happened. I want a salary hike. This is things I'm noticing at the workplace, which is why a lot of my clients are actually having a phobia of taking Gen Z as interns or management trainees because in 3 months they come back saying, "See, I've been doing well. Let's talk about a 30% salary hike." I'm like, where? Yes, it happens.
Parvati, when you were just about to pass out of your uni, and probably looking at a career in PR, or and so, what was that number in your head that you thought that, listen, out of the uni I'll start making this amount? Reality hit, that's a different story.
Hmm.
But
That's a very different thing. Yeah. I think, yeah, a decent amount, like in UA, I would say between 5 to 10K is something that I thought. But then again, it's not even close to that when you start off a career here. I must say, a lot of Gen Z are fortunate enough to make that through different sources. Like again, how I said about brand collabs and influencers. So I feel sometimes I feel like looking at the younger Gen Z, I feel like, okay, what am I doing in my life? Am I actually making that much of money?
Wow.
So I think a lot of people out there, they are still able to meet their demands, I mean, the expectations, but maybe not through their first job or not through a job that they're getting through a traditional interview process.
So now tell me, Parvati, my final question to you is that if you were to move to your next job, okay, from your job one to job two, how much time do you think you would be idly spending in your first job?
I think 1 year is something that you like you should agree upon. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I would do that because it's a commitment that you've taken, minimum 1 year. Because you also
1
need
year.
to give some time to explore and learn the company well and also prove yourself.
Mm-hmm.
But I think there are a lot of people who are always hopping companies for a better perspective, I mean, prospects. And I think that is something about my generation. And
George,
yeah,
how often?
I'm laughing because Parvati just said 1 year as if that is too
Too
much
long.
that
too
she's
much.
giving it 1 year. I really hope your employer is not listening right now, Parvati.
I'm right now in my office, but I've crossed 1 year here, so.
She's sitting in her office and talking about 1 year is a good enough time. I need to move. Bosses, if you're not listening, good. And if you're listening, raise her salary right now so that she doesn't quit. George, what
Absolutely.
is the
So,
average
I mean,
time? Bo-
we remember our parents' generation, Neil, where they started with a company, they retired from the same company after
True.
30 years of work. In our generation, millennials, at least 5 to 7 years was
Right.
considered normal. Now 1 year is normal. I mean, my eyes are open. Thank you for that, Parvati.
No, if you don't, it's always
My.
there's a competition. So if you
Co-
don't meet the employees' demands in my generation, then they'll quit because there's always a better opportunity.
there
That's
you
what
go.
I've heard.
Well done, well done. My average is about 5 to 6 years. My first radio job was 5 years. Then I moved here, another place 5 years. Then this is my third year. So yeah, I mean it's a good time frame that I've spent. But yeah, not a year anywhere, Parvati. Never a year anywhere. But thank you so much, guys, for spending this time with us. It was not as long as a year, but we got to learn a lot. George, Parvati, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much. Thank
Thank
you
you
so much
very
for
much.
having us.
Great
Thank
meeting
you,
you,
George.
Parvati.